G?
Yeah.
You went for dinner?
Soup. Just soup.
Okay.
Thank you.
We gotta make broth first.
Okay. In the meantime?
No, we're gonna make broth right now.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so the first step in our broth construction is we're going to take a leek here and cut this up. So I'm sure you probably know this, but just in case you don't, leeks are grown in the sand. So before you use them, you have to cut them and clean them. So the way that we do that is we're going to take this bottom part like this, cut that in half like that, and then we're just going to dice this up. Now for the top here, we can use all of this green part too. The only thing that I like to do is just kind of trim these top pieces off, and then we can just continue our dice with this. So you can see, I cut these very thin, and what I'm doing here is just working these small parts and just breaking them apart. Because when you get it, they look like this, and what you want to do is, well, make it explode in your hand like that. And just try to get these layers apart because there's sand that goes into all those layers. So that's what I'm going to continue to work on doing as I fill this bowl up with some more water. So once you've agitated your leeks here, we're just going to let this sit. Now the reason why we did this part first is this needs to sit and soak while we prep all of the other vegetables. So we're going to let this go here, and then we'll start on everything else. So as far as vegetables go, with your stock, you just want to stick with the classics here. We just want carrots, celery, and onions. When we do this, I peeled these carrots. You really don't have to if you're making stock, because in theory, you're going to boil all of the flavor out of whatever vegetable you're using, so they won't taste like anything anyway. You know, it's just a balance of how lazy are you. Do you want to clean the skins or peel them? And I was to the point of lazy where it's faster for me to peel them than to clean the skin. So we'll just rough chop these because, again, we're not going to eat these. The only purpose here is to flavor the broth. So you don't have to go crazy with dicing it or anything. So we're just going to rough chop these carrots, and then we'll follow suit with the carrots, or excuse me, the celery and the onions. So another trick here as we unwrap our celery, if you don't know this, if you store your celery in aluminum foil, it will last quite a bit longer than if you just leave it in the bag. So we're just going to give this a quick rinse. So when you're dicing up celery, you know, sometimes you're going to get pieces like this that are sort of brown on the end. You just cut that off. I mean, again, this is a broth. We're not going to eat any of this, so just rough chop will be fine. The only thing that we do want to do is we want to take the leaves off. These are bitter, so we just want the actual stalk of the celery. Again, rough chop. Okay, and the last little bit of aromatic is we're going to throw some garlic in here. Now this is one of those things that you can leave the garlic skin on. You can also leave the skin on your onions. If you've got yellow onions, they really do add a nice, the skins of them I should say, do add a nice color to the broth. The red onions that I had are pretty old and gross, so I'm not going to use those skins. So all you have to do is just smash this. Just like this, and you can use the skin and all. Because again, we're not going to eat this. The only purpose of the vegetables is just for flavoring. So for the leeks, if you just grab a little mesh strainer like this, now I'm going to use these for the soup component of this. So I don't want to use all of them, but I am just going to grab a handful. We'll just put them in the strainer, and we'll just rinse them one more time. Watch out for escapees. So from the sink, we're going to add our leeks here. And then our next step is going to be adding just a squirt of tomato paste. I always joke that these double concentrated tomato paste things look like toothpaste for Italian kids. So after we've added our tomato paste here, I'm just going to do a quick little bit of olive oil, and that's just to get the tomato paste to stick to the vegetables. Okay, off to the pot. So for the meat portion of this, we're using chicken back. So you can get these from any butcher shop. If you're spatchcocking a chicken, or you're just basically taking a chicken apart, this is basically the spine portion of it. So if you look, this also includes a little bit of the neck. So I've got 2 chicken backs in here, and now we're going to add our vegetables. So an interesting thing is, we're not going to saute or roast these first. We're just making a very, very simple chicken stock here. So we're just going to start these on the bottom of the pan, but we're just going to bring this up to temperature very slowly. So what I am going to add is 1 bunch of parsley. Just pick this from outside. This has the stems and everything. I just rinsed it off. Throw that in there. I'm going to throw just a few whole peppercorns in here. A couple of bay leaves. I like a very bay heavy broth. Some people only put 1. I put a bunch. And then we're just going to add our vegetable mixture that we coated in tomato paste. So the next step here is we're going to put our burner on high, and we are going to add water. So this is about 2 liters of cold water. You want to start with cold water and bring it up to temperature on the stove. So after about 15 minutes, we've almost come to a boil here. And what you can notice here is there is some white scum that has come to the top of the pot. So all we're going to do is just take a flat spoon, or I don't know if you want to call that a flat spoon. How about just a big spoon, serving spoon? Just take some of that off. Now you don't want too much of this gone, because any of the liquid that you're taking away is also a lot of flavor, but we're just going to take a little bit of this scum off the top. This isn't really necessary unless you want your broth to be very clear. Since we are using the chicken backs, you're going to get a lot more of this scum than you normally would if you're using fresh meat. Well, not even necessarily fresh meat, just cut meat. So right now we're coming to a boil. I'm going to back my heat off to medium-low and just let this calm down. Okay, so we just have some pretty little bubbles that are happening right now. I'm going to let this simmer uncovered because we do want this to reduce a little bit. We're going to let this simmer uncovered for an hour, and we'll check back in after an hour. Okay, so it's been an hour, and this is what our broth is looking like. So it is already looking very chickeny, very, very much like chicken broth. So we're just going to give this a quick little stir here. I've been kind of walking by this and taking some of the scum off, but there still is a lot, as you can tell. So in case you can't really see this on camera, I'm just going to fill up a little white ramekin so you can see the consistency so far of an hour in. So this is what we're looking at. It's a little cloudy still, and it's got some particulate in there, but that's all right. We're going to strain that out. So I'm going to set the timer here for another hour, and we'll check back in. All right, so here we are at the 2-hour mark here. You can see that because we're simmering this with no lid, we are losing quite a bit of liquid if you look at the ring on the pot. So let's just see the color on this now. Yeah, so this is looking a lot like chicken broth now. So I'm gonna just grab a spoon here and let's see what this tastes like. That's good. It needs salt, so you know we haven't salted this, but it does taste good. And the other things that I'm going to do is just grab a piece of celery. That's just a test. You know, when you're making stock or things like demi and things like that, you're taking essentially all of the flavors out of all of the things that you're boiling. So if you taste this and it still tastes like celery, you probably need to cook it a little bit longer. So it should really taste like nothing. So stand by. Yeah, that tastes like nothing. So this is, in my mind, this is done. We're gonna just turn off the heat and we're gonna let this cool down. Okay, so the way that we're gonna strain this is through a fine mesh strainer into a big bowl. So we're just going to dump this out. Now we're going to do 2 batches of this because I don't have a large enough mesh strainer. Once those chicken backs come out of there. They're going to overflow this piece. Now before we do the next batch, I'm going to rinse this out. Because, you know, a lot of the fat and scum is getting caught by the strainer, which is its job. I'm going to put that back in there. So if we look at the backs, they're falling apart, just like this, which is a good thing. That means that we've extracted everything out of it that we possibly can. Now, if you were making demi, as an example, these would fall apart even further because it's a 12 to 14 hour simmer. Which my plan is to make a video on making demi. That'll be coming up as a sneak peek. And perhaps if you're watching this, that video will already happen. And if so, future Billy will put a link to how to make demi-glace. So it's important that this last little bit of vegetables that are out of here, you strain this. These are the most flavorful bits, is what comes out of this last little bit. So the next step here is just to let this cool down. We'll have Jina taste it. It's not going to taste very good. You know, with stocks like this, you just want to get it to a point where it adds savoriness, but the final amount of salt that you add needs to be added when you're preparing your final dish. So, if, you know, we're going to make soup out of this, so all of the salting is going to happen in that. You don't want to salt things normally and then add a salty broth, and then as you're adding your broth, it makes it too salty. So before we bottle this up, we'll have Jina give this a taste, and then we'll be on to our soup video. Hey, G. taste this chicken broth?
Oh, okay. Oh, it's very mild.
You mean it's not salted?
Yeah, it's good.
Is it all right as far as chicken broth goes?
Yeah, it's very subtle. It's very subtle. I like it.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go.
As you were.
It's okay.
What, the chicken broth?
No, this.
Oh. Thank you, honey.